The Telegraph is dominated by the Hancock WhatsApp leaks, now called lockdown files. Lockdown leaks would sound like a plumbing job for my plumber Dan. And the care home failings of Hancock are again rehearsed with Isabel Oakeshott. She's allowed her own comment that it was the appalling disregard for the well-being of young people which should have been paramount. And this has driven her, she says, to release her WhatsApp messages, and that gets to the main point that was perhaps not clear yesterday, because the headline in the Daily Telegraph focuses on a rivalry between Hancock and Gavin. Go, Gavin, go! I think they're almost interchangeable as far as I can tell in looks, morals and character. And at a time of national crisis, two wimpy nothings are pitted against each other to see who can emerge as alpha male. It's laughable, really, it's laughable. Hancock is explicit, talking of Gavin eating humble pie and the next U-turn, and the battleground is whether to keep schools open in January 2020. And so strident is the competition that the real issue is still completely eclipsed and only hinted at. Gavin fights for children to be kept in school and even argues on the front page that it's only an opinion piece. My goodness, they must really hate Hancock. I suppose it's reasonable to hate Hancock, isn't it? Anyway, Gavin argues in the opinion piece on the front page of the Telegraph that the science only confirmed that 0.1% of children would go down with COVID and went down with COVID. Plenty of false negatives, of course, and they would continue to be excluded because of false negatives by previous policies that were apparently too complex to reverse. But Gavin says the real reason for putting children in masks was a yaboo to Nicola Sturgeon and therefore to Humza Yousaf, the health minister at the time in Scotland, and that the decision to close schools was steamrolled through, no bust reason for children under 12 to be kept at home or under the rule of 6, no reason at all for children to be wearing masks, according to the chief medical officer. So there is a sort of scientific basis for not doing what was done. And there's a brief paragraph in the huge first page saying that Gavin accused teachers of looking for an excuse not to work, as they argue that they needed personal protective equipment for their classrooms. This is the key paragraph, and it's submerged in all the personal invective. So even a small school of 150 pupils has up to 80 adult staff employed on a daily basis. And I was teaching during this period in a number of different schools and online, and all the staff rooms that I knew, every single staff room that I knew, in fact, every staff room I've known for the last 3 years, has been crippled with absences, with staff absences. So much so that on occasion the schools have simply seized up for want of adults and supply staff. So that paragraph of Gavin, that teachers are idle, belittles the commitment and effort of teachers to do their job, and it's really quite insulting. It's the same contempt that Gavin demonstrated over GCSEs and A-levels. Gavin knows best, and clearly on the front page of the Daily Telegraph he's got license to tell us again and again that he knows best. So, apologies to Oakeshott and to Gavin, but in this instance I think Hancock was actually right. It's mad to say this. Whatever efforts our schools might have taken to stay open in January 2020, the reality is that their own staff shortages and uncertainty would have closed them day after day. It was better to focus on a different form of education, and that was Gavin's responsibility and something that he signally failed to do. He failed to implement anything like an alternative form of education. Now, the online options have existed for a while, and in fact I had been working in my university on an integrated online scheme from about 2014 onwards, work that now continues in Israel mostly, and none of this was taken up. Instead, mainstream teaching was simply relayed to a smattering of computers. It was a limp attempt to replicate what would otherwise be done in a class, and it was done universally badly. We need to embrace a proper online learning system in a coherent way that other countries have already done. We're stuck in a mad world where we're trying to record real-world classroom teaching without recognizing that we have to think in a new medium, and we have to take advantage of the many opportunities that new medium can actually offer us. So a more focused and less testosterone-driven and vengeful minister than Gavin Williamson might have been able to embrace these new ideas, but Gavin was too caught up in his rivalry with Matt Hancock to be able to see the bigger picture. So the Telegraph leader says that the younger generation needs answers. Certainly it does, but not just from Hancock, it needs answers from Gavin Williamson as well. Because the remit was not about closing schools, but about securing education from either school or from home, and this is now exposed. This was never Gavin's focus. It's not about groupthink or paranoia, it's about responsibility for the brief. And Gavin Williamson demonstrates once again, even now, that he has no idea what he was doing. So yes, of course I reprimand Hancock, and I castigate Gavin Williamson. And as for Isabel Oakeshott, she's done what she had to do. She wasn't paid. Why should she have loyalty?